Hey everybody, how's it going? Before we get into today's video, I want to ask to see if you're subscribed real quick. If you're not, it's free and it will let you know whenever we post new videos. Without further ado. Eldon Sticks clutched the data tablet with shaking hands, mandibles clicking rapidly as they read.
This can't be right,
they muttered to the small group huddled in the conference prep room.
Run the numbers again. We did,
said Zix.
12 times.
The tablet clattered onto the table. Outside in the main hall, thousands of beings were taking their seats for the 847th Galactic Geographic Conference. Zix tried not to think about them, or about the career-ending humiliation that would follow if they were wrong. The prep room smelled of anxiety pheromones and stale coffee substitute. Zix had been nursing the same cup for hours, watching the strange blue liquid grow cold. Their species couldn't even drink it. The cup was just something to hold. A habit picked up from too much time around humans. A soft chime sounded. 5 minutes until the presentation.
You don't have to do this,
said Eldon Sticks.
We could delay, gather more data.
No, Zix stood, straightening their ceremonial robes.
They need to know. The whole galaxy needs to know what we have found.
The main hall fell silent as Zix walked onto the stage. Row upon row of environmental bubbles stretched into the darkness, each containing a different species. Some floated in liquid, others basked in radiation. A few existed as pure energy. All of them were here to learn about newly discovered worlds. None of them were prepared for this. Zix's claws clicked against the podium as they loaded the first slide. The image bloomed above the stage, a blue-white planet spinning slowly in space, wrapped in clouds and crowned with ice.
Colleagues,
Zix's voice came out steadier than expected.
What I'm about to show you will change how we classify habitable worlds forever.
A few chuckles rippled through the crowd. In the back, someone's methane bubble flickered with bioluminescent laughter.
This is Earth,
Zix continued.
At first glance, it appears to be a standard life-bearing world. Beautiful, even. But after 3 years of study, I can tell you with certainty that it is the most terrifying planet we have ever encountered.
The laughter grew louder. Zix had expected this. They'd practiced this moment for weeks, knowing exactly how it would play out. Their hand moved to the controls, ready to show the first piece of evidence.
You can laugh. I understand. We've all seen worlds with acid storms and crushing gravity. But Earth...
The image zoomed in on an innocent-looking mountain range.
Earth is something else entirely.
Numbers began scrolling across the display. The laughter stopped.
Let's start with the basics,
Zix said, rotating the hologram.
Earth's surface is 70% covered in a highly corrosive solvent, a substance so aggressive it can carve through solid rock, yet the locals call it water and literally drink it for survival.
Someone in the front row gagged.
But that is not the truly disturbing part.
The image shifted to a peaceful beach scene.
These are called waves. The liquid portion of the planet is in constant motion, driven by not one, but 2 different celestial bodies. The smaller waves can crush bones, the larger ones.
Zix paused as footage played a tsunami demolishing a coastal city.
They can level entire population centers.
A horrified murmur swept through the audience. A crystalline being near the front began to vibrate in distress.
Perhaps you're thinking the land must be safer.
Zix clicked to the next slide.
The solid ground of Earth is fractured into massive pieces that float on a sea of molten rock. These pieces collide constantly, at random, triggering events called earthquakes.
The mountain range from earlier reappeared.
Those beautiful peaks? They are the result of these collisions. Their entire planet is essentially a geological war zone, with continents that have been crashing into each other for billions of years.
Eldon Stix's sensory stalks had gone completely rigid. In the third row, a gaseous being had condensed to half its normal size.
But surely,
Zix continued,
a species would at least be safe from the sky.
The image panned upward to cheerful white clouds.
Except Earth's atmosphere is in a perpetual state of chaos. These clouds, they're concentrations of that same corrosive liquid, suspended in the air by heat differentials. When conditions are right, they turn into something called storms.
The display showed a tornado tearing through a Midwest town.
Wind speeds that can drive pieces of straw through solid wood. Lightning bolts hot enough to turn sand into glass. And in some regions, chunks of frozen water fall from the sky with enough force to dent metal.
A Jovian representative raised their appendage.
Surely these are rare occurrences?
I wish.
Zix pulled up a global weather map.
At any given moment, approximately 2,000 of these storms are active somewhere on the planet. The locals have entire networks dedicated to tracking them. They've made it a profession. Think about that. The weather is so consistently lethal that they need specialists to warn them about it.
The room had grown very quiet. Even the earlier skeptics were leaning forward now, their various sensory organs fixed on the display.
And we haven't even gotten to the worst part yet.
Zix brought up a new image, this one showing a chain of mountains with smoke rising from their peaks.
Who can tell me what this is?
No one spoke.
This is a volcano, a place where the molten core of the planet regularly breaks through to the surface. Earth has approximately 1,500 of them. Over 500 are currently active, spewing toxic gases and liquid rock into the environment. The locals build cities next to them.
A high-pitched keening sound came from somewhere else in the back of the hall. Someone had fainted.
I know this all sounds impossible,
Zix said, their voice grave.
But I haven't even started on the local wildlife yet. Or worse.
They loaded the next slide.
The humans themselves. Before we discuss humans,
Zix said,
we need to understand what kind of ecosystem could produce such a species.
The hologram shifted to display a verdant rainforest.
Earth's wildlife is the result of nearly 4 billion years of constant biological warfare.
The image zoomed in on a line of leaves being carried across a branch.
These are called ants. They're smaller than my smallest claw, and yet a single colony can strip an animal to bone in hours. They build vast underground empires, farm other species for food, and wage wars that make our military strategists look like children.
Zix clicked to the next slide.
This is a bee. It is a flying creature that injects other beings with toxic venom for what the humans call self-defense. When one attacks, it releases pheromones that command the entire hive to join the assault. The humans, naturally, decided to build homes for them. They call it beekeeping.
Someone in the audience knocked over their chair, trying to back away from the image.
But perhaps most disturbing is how Earth's wildlife has evolved to cope with the planet's hostile conditions. This,
Zix displayed a photograph of a platypus,
is not a joke or an error. It is a real creature that produces venom, lays eggs, and can detect electrical signals. The humans call it bizarre. I call it an evolutionary nightmare.
A series of rapid clicks indicated someone was trying to transmit a question. Zix acknowledged them.
Yes, but surely these are isolated examples. I wish.
Zix pulled up a new slide.
This is a jellyfish. It's essentially living water that hunts and kills other species. This one,
they highlighted a particular specimen,
is immortal. It can revert to an earlier stage of its life cycle when injured or stressed. It cannot die of old age.
The questioning clicks stopped abruptly.
Here is a crocodile. It hasn't needed to evolve for millions of years because it is already a perfect killing machine. The humans sometimes wrestle them for entertainment.
Zix paused as several beings began to emit distress signals.
Yes, you heard that correctly. For entertainment.
The hologram shifted again.
This is a tardigrade. It can survive in the vacuum of space, without water, for decades, at temperatures approaching absolute zero or above boiling. It's practically indestructible, and it's microscopic. Earth produces invincible creatures too small to see.
Eldon Styx had begun making the high-pitched whistle that indicated extreme evolutionary distress.
And remember, Zix continued, these creatures all evolved on the same planet, fighting each other for survival. The ones I'm showing you, these are just the ones we could classify. Earth has millions of species, many still undiscovered. The humans occasionally find new ones in their own backyards.
The display went dark for a moment. When it came back up, it showed a simple house cat sleeping in a sunbeam.
This is a cat. It's what humans keep in their homes as a pet. It's an obligate carnivore that kills for pleasure, can see in near total darkness, and has razor-sharp retractable claws. Tests show it would happily eat its owner if it were larger. Humans know this. They don't care. They give them names and buy them toys.
A low murmur of disbelief rippled through the audience.
And that,
Zix said quietly,
brings us to the most terrifying thing about Earth's wildlife.
They looked up from their notes, compound eyes gleaming.
Every single creature I've shown you, from the ants to the crocodiles, they all fear humans. Let me be clear,
Zix said, bringing up an anatomical diagram of a human.
These beings should not exist. Their very survival defies our understanding of evolutionary physics.
The diagrams began rotating, highlighting different features.
Humans have no natural weapons, no claws, no venom, no armor. Their skin tears easily, their bones break. They can't even digest most of their planet's vegetation without processing it first. By every metric we use to measure apex predators, they should be prey animals.
A new image appeared. A persistence hunt in progress.
This is how early humans hunted. They simply walked after their prey. No running, no ambush. They followed it until it collapsed from exhaustion. Most Earth species can outrun a human, but nothing, and I mean nothing, can outlast them.
Zix brought up a temperature graph.
Humans regulate their body heat by secreting water from specialized glands and letting it evaporate. It's so efficient that they can maintain homeostasis in temperatures that would cook most species alive. They call this sweating, and they're one of the only species that can do it.
The audience shifted uncomfortably as Zix continued.
Their endurance extends beyond just hunting. Humans can heal from injuries that would kill most species. Break their bones, they grow back stronger. Cut their skin, it repairs itself. Remove one of their organs, they can survive with just half of most of their paired organs. Some can even be removed entirely.
The hologram showed a human skull.
Their pattern recognition is off our charts. These beings can look at clouds and see shapes. They can find faces in random collections of shadows. Their brains are constantly, almost obsessively, searching for patterns. This makes them impossibly good at detecting prey, predators, and...
Zix paused meaningfully.
Lies.
A series of concerned whistles rose from the audience.
Their young are born half-developed, with skulls that aren't even fully formed. This should be a disadvantage. Instead, it allows their brains to grow larger and develop in response to their environment. They can adapt to almost any situation within a single generation.
The displays showed humans in various environments: deserts, tundra, rainforests, mountains.
They can survive anywhere, in climates too cold for their bodies. They steal the fur from other animals. Too hot? They live underground. Too dangerous? They reshape the environment itself.
Zix clicked to the next slide, showing early human tools.
And this is where they become truly terrifying. Humans are tool users, yes, but that's not unusual. What's unique is their approach. They don't just use tools, they use tools to make better tools. Then they use those tools to make even better ones. Their technology evolution isn't linear, it is exponential.
The image changed to show a spear.
When they couldn't run fast enough, they invented throwing weapons. Their arms weren't optimized for throwing, so they made machines to throw harder. They wanted to throw even harder, so they invented chemical propellants. Not content with that, they developed guided projectiles that could throw weapons over the horizon.
A low susurrance of horror spread through the chamber as the implication sank in.
"But here is what keeps me awake at night," Zix said softly. "All of this, the persistence hunting, the pattern recognition, the tool use, none of it is their most terrifying trait."
They looked up at the audience, all four hands gripping the podium.
"The truly terrifying thing about humans is that they are friendly. And when I say that humans are friendly," Zix continued, "I mean they form social bonds with literally anything. Other species, machines, even inanimate objects. They assign names and personalities to their vehicles. They mourn when simple cleaning robots break down. But most importantly, they adopt other species."
The hologram displayed a timeline of human-animal domestication.
"Look at wolves, apex predators, pack hunters, perfectly evolved killing machines. Humans didn't kill them all. They didn't want to drive them to extinction. Instead, they saw another social species and thought, 'I want to be friends with that.'"
Nervous laughter from the audience died as the next image appeared. A human child, sleeping, curled up with a wolf descendant.
"They succeeded. They so thoroughly befriended wolves that they created dogs who would rather die than abandon their humans. This isn't a one-time event. They did it with big cats, birds of prey, even sea mammals. If it's social and intelligent, humans will try to friend bond with it."
A new slide appeared, showing ancient hunting parties.
"Early humans were persistence hunters, yes, but they were also persistence friend makers. They survived by expanding their social groups to include other species, and those species thrived as a result. Humans protect what they love, and they can love practically anything."
Zix brought up an image of human warfare.
"But their friendliness has a dark side. Because humans can form such strong social bonds, they also understand how to break them. Their warfare isn't just about territory or resources. They fight with ideas. They can cooperate in groups of millions, numbers that would drive most social species insane. But they can also turn against each other with devastating creativity."
The display showed the ruins of Pompeii.
"When a volcano destroyed the city, they didn't just abandon the region. They dug it up, studied it, built new cities nearby. Humans respond to disasters by becoming obsessed with them. They throw themselves into understanding everything that could hurt them, not to avoid it, but to overcome it."
Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the audience.
"Their recorded history reads like a survival guide written by the clinically insane. They discovered some foods are poisonous, so they invented science to make those poisons into medicine. They found plants that could kill them, so they bred them into food crops instead. When they learned of bacteria that could end their lives, they turned them into tools to extend their lives."
Zix clicked into a new slide showing early human migrations.
"They spread across their world not because they had to, but because they couldn't stop wondering what was over the next horizon. They climbed mountains because they were there. They crossed oceans on nothing but wooden boats and stubborn optimism. And when they found new places that could kill them, they treated it as a challenge."
The hologram shifted to show human medical procedures.
"They cut open their own bodies to fix what is inside. They transplant organs between people. They drain their blood and pump in someone else's. Once humans discovered that horrible diseases could be prevented by deliberately infecting people with weaker diseases, instead of calling them mad, they gave him awards."
A new image, the first lunar landing.
"When they ran out of places to explore on Earth, they looked up. They saw the void of space and thought, 'We should go there.' They exploded themselves off their planet's surface using controlled bombs because they couldn't wait to see what was up there. The same vacuum that most species consider an ultimate barrier, they treated as the next frontier."
Zix paused, letting the weight of history sink in.
"We keep looking for the limit of what humans will befriend, fight, study, or explore. We haven't found it yet. I don't think it exists. Humanity's relationship with their environment is unlike anything we've encountered."
Zix said. pulling up a satellite view of Earth at night.
When they can't adapt to their environment, they adapt the environment to them.
The image zoomed in on Manhattan.
This is what they call a city. Look closely. They didn't build around the obstacles. They erased them. Where there were hills, they flattened them. Swamps drained. Rivers moved. They carved out mountains and filled in valleys until the land matched the blueprints in their heads.
Someone in the audience raised a trembling appendage.
But the energy requirements... Precisely, Zix interrupted. The energy requirements are astronomical, so they split atoms. They built artificial suns. And when that wasn't enough, they learned to harness their planet's natural disasters. See these?
The display showed a field of wind turbines.
They built machines to steal energy from their storms.
The hologram shifted to showcase agricultural regions.
They didn't just change the land. They redesigned their planet's biology. These are farms, places where they tell plants how to grow, not through genetic engineering, though they do that too, but through generations of selective breeding. They looked at their world's flora and fauna and said, "We can make this better."
Nervous clicks echoed through the chamber as Zix continued.
Most species adapt to their food supply. Humans got frustrated with the slow pace of evolution and created new food. They took grasses and turned them into grains. They made fruits larger, sweeter, and easier to eat. They looked at poisonous plants and decided to make them edible instead.
The image changed to show a time-lapse of desert transformation.
When they need more growing space, they irrigate deserts. Too cold, they build greenhouses. Too hot, underground farms. They grow food in artificial conditions so controlled that the plants don't know they're not on their native soil anymore.
Zix brought up a new slide showing various dog breeds.
Remember those wolves they befriended? Look what they did to them. They reshaped entire species to serve different purposes. Do you need something to hunt rabbits? They made dogs that can fit down burrows. Need to pull sleds? They breed dogs with thick fur and endless stamina. Want a living hot water bottle? They created tiny dogs just to sit in your lap.
The audience had gone very still.
They apply this same principle to everything. Birds that couldn't fly, cows that produce 10 times the natural amount of milk, cats with specific coat patterns just because they liked how it looked. They treat evolution like an art project.
The display showed the aftermath of a major construction project.
But what truly terrifies me about human engineering, the speed. When they decide to change something, they don't wait for natural processes. That patience they show in persistence hunting, it vanishes completely. They can transform an entire landscape in days. They build artificial islands. They cut channels between oceans. They raise buildings that touch the clouds, all while living in them.
Zix clicked to the final slide of this section, showing them a controlled burn of a forest.
They even control fire. They didn't just learn to create it. They learned to use it as a tool. When their forests grow too dense, they don't wait for nature to clear them. They start their own fires. They fight fire with fire, literally. And afterward, they plant new trees in neat rows like soldiers.
A low hum of distress filled the chamber as the implications became clear. Zix let the silence build before speaking again.
And yet,
they said softly,
this casual reshaping of their world isn't even the most disturbing part. What's truly terrifying is what they do in their spare time. Let me explain human entertainment,
Zix said, hands shaking slightly as they loaded the next dataset.
When humans aren't busy reshaping their world, they deliberately seek out controlled doses of terror.
The hologram displayed a roller coaster.
This is not a transportation system. This is not a training device. This is what they do for fun. They strap themselves into small carts and experience rapid elevation changes at unsafe speeds. The ones that trigger the most fear responses are considered the best. They bring their children to these places.
Scattered sounds of distress echoed through the chamber.
They celebrate their mastery over fire by setting off miniature explosions in the sky. They jump out perfectly functional aircraft, They tie elastic cords to their ankles and fall from great heights. They climb frozen waterfalls. And when nature doesn't provide enough challenges, they invent new ones.
The display showed a skateboarder attempting a dangerous trick.
They create specialized devices specifically to make simple transportation more difficult. The more likely an activity is to cause injury, the more prestige they award it. They call these extreme sports, and they give prizes to whoever takes the biggest risks.
Zix brought up footage from a boxing match.
For entertainment, they watch members of their own species fight in ritualized combat. But here is truly the bizarre part. The fighters aren't trying to kill each other. They've turned their predatory instincts into a game with rules. They consider this civilized.
The image shifted to show a pepper eating contest.
Remember how they turned poisons into food? They did not stop there. They started deliberately breeding plants to be more poisonous, not to use as weapons, but to eat them for fun. They compete to see who can endure the most pain from their food. They call these spices, and their absence is considered boring.
A new slide appeared showing various energy drinks.
They intentionally consume stimulants that trigger their fight or flight response, not for hunting or combat, but to help them work longer hours, or simply because they enjoy the sensation. They have created countless varieties of these drinks and argue about which one tastes best.
The hologram changed to display a horror movie screening.
This is perhaps the most baffling. They create artificial scenarios designed to trigger fear responses, then gather in groups to experience them together. They deliberately scare themselves, knowing it isn't real, and derive pleasure from the experience. They've even studied the chemical reactions in their brains that make this enjoyable.
Zix clicked to footage of a mosh pit.
During musical gatherings, they intentionally slam their bodies into each other. The more physically demanding the activity, the more they seem to enjoy it. They leave these events bruised, exhausted, and happy.
The display showed humans in various virtual reality setups.
Not content with real dangers, they create artificial ones. They spend hours immersed in simulated experiences designed to trigger their survival instincts. They call this gaming, and it is one of their largest entertainment industries.
A low murmur of disbelief rippled through the audience as Zix continued.
They write stories about imaginary disasters. They make art about their fears. They turn their nightmares into entertainment franchises. Every terrifying aspect of their world, they transform it into something they can enjoy.
Zix paused, letting the implications sink in.
And that is what makes them so dangerous. We are not dealing with simple predators. We are dealing with a species that has not only mastered their fear responses, but learned to derive pleasure from them. They are adrenaline junkies on an evolutionary scale. And if you think that is concerning,
Zix added, pulling up the next data set,
wait until you see the statistical analysis. Let's look at the numbers,
Zix said, bringing up a complex comparative analysis.
We've classified roughly 12 million death worlds in our galaxy. Earth manages to rank in the top percentile in multiple categories simultaneously, something we previously thought impossible.
The data streams crystallized into a series of charts.
First, geological activity. Most planets are either tectonically active or stable. Earth maintains a precise level of activity that constantly reshapes its surface without rendering it uninhabitable. The statistical probability of this balance occurring naturally is so low, we had to check our math 6 times.
A new graph appeared, this one comparing atmospheric compositions.
Earth's atmosphere is 21% pure oxygen. For those not familiar with oxygen's reactive properties, this is insane. The planet is constantly on the verge of catching fire. Most comparable worlds either have significantly less oxygen or have already burned themselves clean of life.
Zix highlighted a particular data point.
Notice this reading? Earth's atmospheric composition should be toxic to most carbon-based life. Instead, its inhabitants evolved to depend on it. Humans become uncomfortable when oxygen levels drop even slightly below the potentially lethal concentration.
The hologram shifted to show comparative gravity readings.
Earth's gravity is high enough to hold an atmosphere, but low enough to allow complex life to develop. This isn't unusual. What is unusual is how humans have adapted to it. They developed dense muscle mass and reinforced skeletal structures that would be catastrophically heavy on most worlds, yet remain light enough to run and jump. The energy calculations alone gave 3 of our computers a critical error.
Someone in the audience raised an appendage.
But surely other worlds.
Look at this convergence.
Zix expanded the data set.
Deadly pressures, lethal temperatures, toxic atmosphere, constant geological upheaval, exposure to radiation. Any one of these should create an environmental filter preventing complex life. Earth has all of them. The planet is trying to kill its inhabitants in multiple ways simultaneously.
The display showed a biochemical analysis.
Human blood contains enough iron to trigger metal detectors. They use copper for cellular processes. Their bones are reinforced with calcium, which explodes on contact with water. They need proteins that would be considered neurotoxins on most worlds. Their bodies are basically walking chemical weapons factories.
A series of rapid clicks indicated another question. Zix acknowledged it.
Yes, but how do they compare to other predator species?
That is the most disturbing part.
Zix brought up a new chart.
We created standardized metrics for comparing predatory species across different worlds. Humans break the scale in ways we never imagined possible. They can process visual information faster than our instruments can measure. Their pattern recognition exceeds our best AI. Their social cooperation abilities suggest a hive mind, but they are all individuals.
The hologram displayed a timeline of human technological advancement.
This is their development curve. Notice anything strange? That vertical line isn't an error. They went from primitive tools to spaceflight in less than 10,000 years. The mathematical models say that this is impossible. We thought our data was corrupted until we cross-referenced it from multiple sources.
Zix paused, clicking to the final data set.
And here is the conclusion that forced us to create an entirely new classification system. Earth isn't just a death world. It's not just a predator world. It's something new. A world that actively encourages its dominant species to become more dangerous over time. Every hostile aspect of the planet has pushed humans to become more resilient, more innovative, and more cooperative.
The chamber had gone completely silent. Even the ambient life support system seemed quieter than usual.
We're not looking at a typical apex predator species.
Zix's voice had dropped to nearly a whisper.
We're looking at the result of an evolutionary arms race between a species and their own planet, and the species is winning. But none of this,
Zix said, their voice heavy.
None of this is the most terrifying thing about Earth and its humans.
They cleared their throat.
The most terrifying thing is that they think their world is tame.
The hologram displayed a human child's drawing of an alien, a thing with too many teeth, dripping acid, hunting humans through a burning landscape.
This is what they imagine when they think of hostile worlds. They assume that anything evolved on a different planet must be more dangerous than they are.
Nervous laughter rippled through the audience.
I'm serious. When we first made contact, they were relieved. Do you understand? Relieved! They had convinced themselves that the galaxy must be full of monsters far worse than anything Earth has produced. Their fiction, their movies, their games, they're all filled with fantasies of more horrifying worlds than our own.
The display showed clips from various scenes in science fiction movies.
Look at how they imagine alien life. Acid blood, armored exoskeletons, hive minds. They took everything terrible about their own world and assumed it must be worse everywhere else. They were genuinely surprised to learn that most worlds are far more stable and peaceful than Earth.
Zix brought up diplomatic transcripts.
When we warned them about the dangers of space travel, they got excited. When we explained the harsh conditions on other worlds, they started planning colonies. They called our most inhospitable research outposts good starter locations for learning survival skills.
The chamber had grown so quiet that you could hear the environmental systems humming.
Here's a human child's textbook about space.
The image showed cheerful cartoons explaining vacuum exposure and radiation.
They're teaching their young to dream about exploring the void. Their children play games about surviving on other planets. but they're raising entire generations to think of interplanetary colonization as not just possible, but inevitable.
Zix clicked to the next slide, showing human spacesuit designs.
They're already improving our environmental protection technologies. They looked at our best survival suits and called them, and I quote, too restrictive for parkour. They've started modifying them to allow for more athletic movement in vacuum.
A series of architectural drawings appeared.
These are their plans for lunar habitats. Notice anything strange? They included windows, large ones. They want to look out at the void while they drink their morning stimulants. They're designing gardens for Mars. Gardens! On Mars! They're treating the most hostile environments we've found like future vacation spots.
The hologram shifted to show a human settlement in Antarctica.
This is what they do on the coldest part of their own world. They build research stations. They live there for months at a time. They study ice cores and penguins. Sometimes they do it just to say they did it. They call it adventurous.
Zix's hands were shaking now.
Don't you understand? We're not containing them on a death world. We're not keeping them trapped on a hostile planet. Their world isn't a prison. It is a training ground. And they have just graduated.
The display showed the latest human spacecraft designs.
They're coming to the stars, and they're bringing their survival skills with them. Every terrible thing their world could throw at them, they've overcome. Everything that should have killed them has just made them more resilient. And they think this is normal.
Zix looked out over the silent audience.
We thought we were studying a dangerous species on a deadly world, but we weren't. We were watching humanity complete their training, and now they want to meet the rest of the galaxy.
The silence in the chamber lasted nearly 5 minutes. Zix stood at the podium, waiting. They'd expected arguments, dismissals, even outrage. The utter silence was somehow worse. Finally, Elder and Styx floated their environmental bubble to the stage. Their voice came to the translator with an unmistakable tremor.
You are certain of these findings? Every data point has been verified,
Zix said.
Multiple teams, multiple methods. The humans even helped us check our work, though they seemed confused about why we were so interested in what they considered basic planetary science.
The Elder's sensory stalks wavered.
Did they offer any insights during this verification process? Yes.
Zix pulled up one last transcript.
When we explained our classification system for dangerous worlds, they suggested improvements. They pointed out several lethal planetary conditions we haven't even considered. They called it brainstorming.
A rustle of movement swept through the chamber as hundreds of beings tried to edge their environmental bubbles slightly further from the stage. Alderton Styx's turned to address the audience.
Members of the Council, we must vote on the proposed classification. The motion is to designate Earth as a Class 0 death world, creating an entirely new category in recognition of its unique status. Please, register your decisions.
The voting took seconds. The result was unanimous.
Very well.
The Elder's voice held the heavy tone of someone pronouncing a historical moment.
Earth is hereby classified as the galaxy's first and only Class 0 death world. All previous contact protocols are suspended pending complete revision. We must...
The chamber door slid open. A human walked in. Every environmental bubble in the room shifted backwards simultaneously. The sound of thousands of beings trying to quietly engage their emergency propulsion systems filled the air. "Hey, sorry I'm late," the human called out cheerfully, making her way down the aisle. "My shuttle hit some turbulence coming into atmosphere. Had to do a bit of creative flying. Nothing serious, just a blown stabilizer. Hey, did I miss anything important?" She was wearing what passed for formal clothing among humans, carrying a bag full of what looked like research materials, and smiling. The closest beings to her path could detect traces of fusion hot stellar radiation still clinging to her clothes from the damaged shuttle. The human reached the stage, looked up at the final slide still hovering in the hologram, and her smile widened. "Oh hey, you're talking about Earth! Great timing! I just finished a paper on some fascinating extremophile bacteria we found in our volcanic vents.
Who wants to hear about how they metabolize metal?
Eldrin Styx's bubble drifted behind Zix's podium. The human was still talking, pulling out data tablets.
I brought samples too.
Well, obviously they're sealed, safety protocols and all that. Though, honestly, the containment feels a bit over-engineered. These little guys are pretty harmless unless you're made of copper. Anyone want a closer look? The emergency evacuation sirens began to sound. The human looked up, concerned. Oh, everything okay? Should we maybe reschedule? I know a great little cafe down on the surface. They make these drinks that are literally on fire. You'd love it. The last thing Zix saw before the council chamber descended into chaos was the human's puzzled expression as she watched hundreds of the galaxy's most distinguished scientists fight to be the first one through the emergency exits. Was it something I said?